today we have the honor of sitting with our guest, Chris Kelly. He is the owner and founder of Kelly Inspections. He's also a firefighter, a role that exemplifies his commitment to helping others. And thank you so much, Chris, for being here today. Thank you for, like what you do for the community. And it's a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you having us here.
Well, it's an honor. Like I said, I know we've been trying to get here for a while now, so it's really nice that we can sit down and have our conversation.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, because you have such a story to tell, right? Like you do it all. You not only are you the founder of Kelly Inspections that we're going to talk about, but I also want to talk about how you serve the community as a firefighter and what inspires you to serve like the community as a firefighter and just as an individual.
So again, that is kind of a big part of our life, and even with our business with Kelly Inspection Services is about just serving people. And so my entire adult life has always been centered around just serving. And so so it's kind of a big part. It started off when I was a very young age. I was a senior in high school. I started going to EMT school. Mm-hmm. So I go to school during the day, and nighttime I'd go to the community college and go to EMT school. And by the spring semester, I lived in a small town and was I was a volunteer firefighter, but I was jumping on the ambulance, taking care of adult people, and I'm still in high school doing stuff, right? So started very young, and been a firefighter in the city of Houston for 20 years now. And I'm also a paramedic and also a licensed peace officer. So so kind of get the little trifecta there. So it's always just been really big to me, just be able to help people, and the most stressful time of their lives, be able to bring that calmness and fix the problems. It's an incredible challenge when there's people in life-threatening situations, and be able to employ knowledge and experience to help them, and just see people like truly help them when they're in that level of distress, and then also bring that calming presence and kind of fix a problem. So, which just gave me an incredible perspective on seeing different people from all walks of life. I've worked in some of the most dangerous neighborhoods, most poorest neighborhoods of Houston. Worked all around the suburbs of Houston, and you get to see all walks of life and see the commonality of just humans. That we're all kind of the same, and no matter what your situation is, and be able to connect with people and see how different people live, get different understandings and perspectives. And then again, from our side, just really be able to do stuff that truly makes a difference.
Oh, that's powerful, and that's beautiful, because you said we're all human. And I think sometimes one might forget that, and like people, especially in this distress situation, like you firefighters, like y'all see, it's like going into these dangerous situations. And so how do you stay like inspired and resilient and grounded in that? Because you're going like right into these dangerous situations. Like you said, you've been all over. You've been from the suburbs to some of the poorest neighborhoods. Like how do you stay persistent with that? I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't do it. I went to nursing school, and I wanted to be an oncology nurse at one point, and I worked as a unit secretary. And instead of doing my job, answering the call light, I was in the patient's room. So it takes a special heart to do what you're doing, because you have to be strong too and grounded, because I'm sure you've seen some things that so how do you deal with all of that and still show up?
So I'd say the biggest thing that the lesson I've taken away, and again employed in all other avenues of my life, is you can't do it alone. The team aspect is probably the biggest things. My role now, I'm a senior captain, and I lead a whole station of 10 guys. And getting to watch it now from that side and leading those guys and seeing what they do daily is really, really continues to motivate me. My job's to continue to prepare them, and go into battle, do stuff, whether it's fires or medical emergencies, but having that somebody next to you. So even if you're feeling like you have an off day, you got somebody right there picking you up and said, let's keep going. And a lot of times now I've kind of changed to the role of being that motivator, where they've just been working day after day after day and just hitting that emotional fatigue, from doing great things and truly saving lives, and then, where they're just running into a wall. And then that's where, I get to come in with that experience and kind of help them through that. And, my past, having other people there that were beside me, and that team is what I think is, approach. So, one person made a bad day, but together we continue to help people, and it's the same in our business now as we operate in the inspection world. We all have off days, but you have a strong team that gets us through that and that have that support system. So
I'm like, I love, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Like it truly is, because you can't do it alone.
No.
It takes a team. And I was going to ask you the question, like, what is your role as a leader? Like, how would you explain your role as a leader? Like at the fire station, with the inspections, being the lead inspector and the owner of Kelly Inspection Services, like your role, like, because so how does it all tie in together? Like, even when it comes to keeping the community safe in our from your everyday, like from day to day.
Yeah, no, and
if that makes sense.
No, perfect. Makes exactly. And so I think leadership is one of the biggest things and qualities that's needed, and something that I take a lot of pride in, that I'm constantly studying. I find it, I'd say humorous, but you see a lot of corporate leadership classes and books that they complicate it. And I think being a good leader is simple as putting the people that you're responsible for, putting their well-being first. Take care of them. If I take care of them, it's a long-standing tradition in a lot of the military branches that the youngest guy, the lowest rank, eats first. Same thing happens at our fire station. I'm the last one to eat when we're at there, because I have to take care of their well-being. When we're on, we go to fires, we do, our specific truck will get on roofs and cut holes in the buildings on fires. And so it can be a dangerous activity, but I'm the first one in that dangerous situation. I'm the last one off, but I'm always putting their welfare ahead of mine. And even in the inspection company, it's, we have an amazing team. And it's always looking after them, they're like, our operations manager, we made a priority and said, she's like, yeah, I can't get to the gym all the time. It's like, guess what? You get an hour every day paid, go to the gym. Does that help you? Yes. Then that's what we do. If our inspectors are swamped, we'll show up on scene and try to help them out, speed things up, and it just all goes back to take care of your people and put their well-being ahead of your own. It's not about some 10-point bullet list from a guy that sat behind a desk for the last 30 years. It's as simple as put their welfare ahead of yours. Your people are going to go the distance for you because you've went the distance, put their welfare ahead of yourself.
So. And that is called selfless living.
Yes.
And that your heart is so beautiful for that. You eat less, you make sure everyone else is taken care of. So at the end of the day, when you're done with that and you've been pouring all day, you've looked out for everyone else, how do you pour back into you? Like, what do you do to reset? Because I think sometimes we get so accustomed of going and like showing up for other people. So what advice would you give to like reset, pour back into yourself to get back after it and do it again?
No, it's a very powerful question, and one that I've, struggled with, and a lot of people in my profession struggle with, because you go, you get used to just that constantly doing stuff, and you feed off that, and you always want to help people, and you're like, oh no, I'm fine, and eventually you can only sustain that for so long, and it's wild to see now as I have younger people working for me, they haven't hit that wall yet. And like, I'm fine, I got this. I'm like, it's going to get you one day. And I have others that are finally hitting that. And so it kind of guide them through it. For me, it was definitely a challenge of just trying to, I'm a serial entrepreneur. So even while I've worked for the fire department in a full-time capacity for the last 2 decades, I've owned a CrossFit gym. I've had a wine bar. I've had a special medical staffing company. And then all those lessons kind of led into Kelly Inspection Services. But I did find that where I was like, I'm just empty. And so now I've kind of realized that I don't have to do everything. And there's some days where I got this list of stuff to do, and I used to be mortified. I'm like, I didn't get everything done. And now it's like, you know what? Maybe today is just, I'm going to chill on the couch and catch up on some Netflix, because I know that if I keep going, I have nothing left in me. A big part of my life is I used to own a CrossFit gym, sold it, And then for 7 years, I didn't do any CrossFit at all. And so CrossFit, I've just reconnected in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And what's huge about that is it's a big community, so you get the same people. It's a group class.
Mm-hmm.
You become friends and family with these people while you're also pushing your mind and your body to the limits, to exhaustion. But when in that state, you don't think about anything, right? And then by the time I'm done, everything that was stressful, anxiety and everything is gone. It's kind of a reset while I'm also in this, supportive environment of this, family, the gym. And so for me, that's a huge one for me. And when I start traveling, I also the privilege of teaching around the country to various fire departments. And when I'm traveling a lot, I find that, if I'm not finding a gym or doing something, I get back and everything, stresses up, anxiety, you name it. And I was like, oh, I know better, get back in the gym. And so for me, that's kind of my time that just isolates me from the world and everything and then, physically and mentally resets everything for me. And that's kind of like my time for myself that has been huge. And when I don't do that, my productivity goes into the trash. So.
And that's so inspiring. Like I was just telling someone today that I want to be a part of the 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. club. Are you a part of the 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. club? Like the CrossFit, working out? Because you're disciplined, even if you're not a part of the 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. Club. You are disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
You do it because if you don't show up for yourself and do that, then you'll have nothing to give. And that is powerful because people just go. And they, yes. I've learned the power in saying no.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I can't do it, I can't do it. Right. And like you said, some days you'll just sit and watch Netflix. I think that's so imperative because some days you just need to rest.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to rest. God wants us to be whole, right? And so I love that you shared that. And that so do you come from a line of like firefighters in your family as well?
So my grandpa was a volunteer firefighter for 47 years.
Okay.
And he helped start the first ambulance service in a little town called Highlands, Texas, on the east side of Houston. That was
east side. Okay.
Right next to Baytown. So that was their community he served. And my dad was actually was a special group of like 4 or 5 kids that were 16 that allowed to do basically as a lower EMT certification so they could get this ambulance up and running. Mm-hmm. And so my dad was a volunteer firefighter. He was a paramedic. He actually taught my EMT class when I went through at 17. But he was a cop. So he ended up being the police chief at Metro Police, and where he retired from a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. So he was a cop and still fought fire, and then Grandpa did it. So I grew up hanging out at the fire station, playing on the fire trucks, but still seeing him doing police stuff. So my sister, she's a just awesome, super detective for the Baytown Police Department. So she went the police route, and I kind of went the fire route.
Well, thank you for your service, you and your sister and your family.
Yeah.
So she's a detective. You went the fire route. It's just always so interesting, right? Because I remember some friends growing up, and like I asked that question because her whole family, they're all firefighters. And I thought that was really cool. Like her dad, her brother, her grandpa. So that's a selfless job. Like
I'm really excited about is the next chapter. I never even thought about this growing up. Is my son, he's 15 and he's about to turn 16. And so he'll come and do ride outs at the station, and he is pumped and ready to go to fire school. So there's a local volunteer fire department down the road that he can go when he turns 16, and they have a junior firefighter program, and he is counting down the days till he can do that. And to see just that fire in his eyes and to think the possibility of him getting to work with me is a whole nother level, like proud papa moment that I never even thought about. And like, before I was like, I could go here. And I was like, I'm not going anywhere. If he's coming here, I'll stay in the job another 20 years, to be able to be there with him and teach him and, do the job hand in hand with him. So that's been a really impactful, profound moment for me to watch that. So I'm very excited to see what happens the next 5-6 years of his life.
You should be a proud dad, proud papa, proud papa moment, because that's powerful. Like, because he's seen you lead a life of an example, right? That you inspire him so much that he wants to take your footsteps. That says a lot about who you are as an individual and what you do and how much you just pour into the community. And so have you ever, like, let's say, what would you tell any young individual, since we were just talking about your son, any young individual that wants to give back to their community, but they don't know how to start? Like, what would advice would you give them?
I would definitely just, try out different things, try explore different things, in the teenage years, there's lots of different, like, explorer programs. Like, so my sister was part of the Boy Scouts have the police explorers program. And so she was a police explorer with Baytown Police Department, and now she works for them.
Yeah.
And so it gives them a taste of it. There's junior firefighter programs, and some of the HOSA programs kind of dabble in that, and it's all about finding what works best for you. I always tell guys, people are thinking about it. An EMT basic class is a semester. And so with that, you go through and you learn. It's great skills to learn, even if you're like, this is not a career for you. And you go do ride outs on an ambulance in the hospital, doing these skills that, if anything, it's fun, but you learn to help people, even if it's not going to be your life, your career. But it kind of gives you a taste of it, kind of saying, this is fun, but I don't want to do this all the time, or the blood's not for me. Some people, the firefighting and putting the gear on and being in zero visibility and high heat really scares people. Like, okay, well, maybe, you can go be a cop, and, there's challenges with that. So there's various different roles, not just public safety, to help people, but, definitely, I think trying it all out, doing ride-alongs, meeting these people, talking to them, and seeing, there's so many jobs out there, and there's actually a shortage. They can't hire enough firemen. They can't there's nowhere near enough paramedics in the state of Texas. They can't hire enough cops. People just aren't looking into those roles, and you can still make a decent living and support a family in a lot of places and still give back, but just nobody thinks about it, and so it's, like I said, it's very, very rewarding. And then, like I said, the relationships you build with the people there. I tell people all the time, my firefighters in my station, we're family. We do stuff outside of work all the time. Like, I love them. And so I tell people, try it out and see if it's for you. You think you'll get a lot more out of it than, certain office jobs where you just look at the money. That's one thing, but money doesn't buy happiness. So.
And they always say, like, if you do what you love, the money will come.
Yep.
So don't focus on money. Like, make sure you're doing what you love and what you're passionate about. And so I think it takes a special heart to be a police officer, to be a fire, like anything that you're putting your life on the line daily, that takes a special heart. So people that are in those roles, like, they want to be there,
Go ahead. And I think some of it's not even, we talk, you think of the, life-saving stuff, gets, exemplified, but I think it'll go beyond that, just to service jobs in general, where you're serving people. Last night I went to, where I used to have a wine bar in the old downtown part of Baytown that we built out of nothing. We did all the build out, everything. And so, it was the first time I'd been back there in 6-7 years since, we closed everything down, and it's a sushi place, but everything we built's still there. And to go back in, it was so powerful to see what we created, because we were just doing an event teaching realtors about social media stuff, and they brought a coffee, like
I'm
mobile.
Like, I need help.
We had plenty of people, right? But there was a cool little espresso bar, and it was like on wheels, and this girl pushes in, and it looked awesome. So she's doing a great job and doing it right. And so she didn't know what the class was about or who I was. And then she's like, after she came to me, and she goes, "Oh my God, you own Court Grinders?" I said, "Well, yeah." She goes, "Me and my husband used to go there. Like, that was our place. Like, we could finally go. We felt like a place we fit in. Like, we felt comfortable, that," and kind of in a way kind of inspired doing the coffee stuff they did, because we were real big on coffee. We had wine, extensive craft beer, but very high-end coffee, espresso, all that. And so it was kind of cool to see all the people, and they'll still comment on Facebook on the memories when stuff pops up from that page. Like, "Oh, that was such a great place." Or they'd say, "This is like something that's out of Austin. We don't have anything like that." And, there was a lot of musical careers that started there, because we do regular music and kind of curate a lot of local music. People that never had an avenue, we give them a spot. Now, there's one girl that travels in Europe touring, doing music, and one of her first paid gigs was with us. So it was like, Court Grinders, the wine bar was we're a service industry, but we touch so many lives, so even if you're not out, running and gunning as a cop or running and burning buildings, I think you can have such an impact on people just when you're serving them, and when you not just like, oh, here's your coffee, here's your wine, but putting yourself in people's position and empathizing with people, and to where they feel heard and seen, and giving that emotional connection, no matter what the business is, I think can have a huge impact and is very rewarding.
That's so powerful. No matter what the business is, you can be answering phones. And when you answer the phone, like I used to serve, I served for probably 16 years. And I miss like talking and just meeting people on a daily basis, right? But I learned a lot from that too. But yeah, I just go back to that. And I remember one of my managers, he said, when you answer the phone, answer it with a smile.
Yes.
People can tell. And so now it's funny, like if I call in, I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're not having a good day. Or I'll do that. I still do that. I'm like, smile on the other end. Like make sure you're being polite. And so, yes, do you think you'll ever get back into the, restaurant business, or right now you're just investing because you have an investment property over in Crystal Beach and you have the inspection services? But what inspired you to start Kelly Inspections? I know I'm all over the place, but what inspired you to do that?
So the kind of connection I heard, firemen, we all have multiple jobs. We do them all the time. And so I worked with a gentleman that was a realtor at my station. And so he starts talking about it and about just real estate, and ran into another coworker that was an inspector. So he starts telling me about it, and I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. I started looking into it. And prior to that, I was actually I'm a master fire inspector. And so I did fire inspections for a small city outside of Houston. And so I did everything from plans reviews, every step of the phase of big commercial buildings. I mean, you name it. So there was, of a strong background from that. And then even in the fire department, every time you test for a rank, there's extensive building construction books you're reading and they're tested on. And so there was a lot of just base there that I was like, oh, that looks, that ties into what I've been doing. So I kind of looked into some of the coursework, and then, signed up for a class. But as soon as once I got into it, I saw, I always said I wasn't going to open another business after we stopped at the wine bar and the CrossFit gym. And then as I was getting into learning about home inspections, I was like, everything we've learned, the lessons learned, the branding, the marketing, the vision of it, and connecting with people, this goes right in here. So as I learned the technical aspect, I also saw a gap where we're missing that communication aspect. And so then it was, like, all right, I saw a clear path, clear as day, where this would go and how we could connect and work with people. And then once kind of started, it was just a match made in heaven. It was like, oh yeah,
a phenomenal job.
Well, we appreciate that. We really try to, like I said, focus on it, is we want to build that trusting relationship, but communications are our key piece, because we can go through and nitpick stuff all day long, but we want to make sure that the stuff we're finding on a home inspection, one, we want to give them the comfort to move forward with the purchase. You've been working with them for months and, being everything for them. We're not here just to be like, oh, show them, let me show you how much I know and scare you. We want to find out what worries you. And so our team starts from the time they call, like I said, the smile on their face on the phone, getting them excited about the house. Like, this house is cool. The pool looks great. I love the open floor plan. And the client, they get excited. Like, yeah, we love that too. And so then, well, what worries you? Well, my brother bought a house and the roof was messed up, and ended up getting a bad leak after he bought it. And I'm just scared to death. So we've trained our inspectors that first thing they do, they address is all those concerns. Hey, the roof looked great. It's in great shape. Now let's look at this. And the inspectors aren't just there like, you got this, and this is wrong. They're going to be like, as they're going through, like, hey, look, we need to get this looked at by an electrician. It may not be nothing, or hey, this might be the fix, but let's get them in here. And then the next room, they'll be like, I love this media room. I could see my family in here. This is cool. And they're like, yeah, so we want to make sure we're taking that journey with them on that home buying process. We buy homes, we live in homes, we have families, and again, that empathy element is huge for us. And then be able to communicate our findings with that empathy piece still intact, that we're, again, helping them and not just somebody coming in as a technician just listing all the problems. We're more than just a technician. And that's, but it kind of goes back to that communication and connection piece that we want to have to help them at the end of the day.
Can you remember a time where, a powerful time where there was something that happened where, I don't even want to say devastation, but maybe to where you saw the community come together as a whole, and what was that like?
Yeah. So I think everybody in Houston probably can relate to this. I think Hurricane Harvey was one where it was a crazy time across the city. The most people don't know that the record rainfall they mentioned actually happened on my side of town, the Mont Belvieu area. So I was at the fire station in Houston for several days, and then when we had relief, I went home and then joined my volunteer fire department in Mont Belvieu, trying to then help everybody there. So it wasn't really an off day, but going down there, roads are flooded, kind of finding different ways, and end up having to park several miles away from city limits, and then everything's flooded to get in. I had to find and then to see the people that are showing up with boats, like just these weren't first responders; they're just regular people. And I took probably 3 different boat rides to make it across all this high water, and then from there we're still working with people with their boats, and it was just everybody. It didn't matter who you were; it doesn't matter that's your job. Everybody was kind of coming together, helping people, and just seeing people just look at devastation on their face, but so many other people that lost stuff that still stepped up and like, we're going to help everybody through this. So it didn't really matter what your job was, or if you're in a big red fire truck or wore a hat. Everybody came together and really kind of helped everybody. And that was going back to my hometown, seeing that, where you never seen water, like it don't ever flood, and we're seeing stuff underwater, and just that was pretty emotional to see. And then but then you're sitting on a boat next to average Joe working together, and I think that was a tearjerker that kind of really gets you like, dang, this is wild, and it's just humans coming together to help humans is all it was. You didn't know what was going on in the world. Nobody had social media pulled up. You didn't know what was on the news or what politicians are doing. It was just a time where everybody came together and was just helping. And I think that was probably a big one after, a pretty extensive career at that point. But that was a big one to watch and be a part of.
And I wasn't here then. What year did that?
2017.
2017. And so I saw it on the news, but could you imagine if people still did that even after the hurricane just came together as a community? How beautiful that would be.
Now, I'll tell you, working in Houston, I will say, and I get to travel the country teaching and stuff. Yeah. Houston is, I think, is a very unique, beautiful place. I love working in Houston, and I just there's times where we'll be out and I'll just stop and just look at the skyline, and there's just people are nice, and like I work in Southwest Houston, which is one of the most diverse areas as far as nationalities and ethnicities, and people are just nice everywhere. Compare when you don't realize it when you're in it, so you go to other places, you're like, why are y'all jerks? It don't cost nothing to be nice. And I would say, the amount of philanthropy you've run across in Houston is crazy. We have a lot of people that support the fire department that donate a lot of stuff that, the city may not always have the money for stuff, but we have donors coming in, donating equipment, and, that truly care. They may not be able to run into a burning building or, help an infant that's, not breathing, but they'll do what they can to support. And Houston and the Houston area is, I think, a very special place in that regard.
What advice would you give, or what do you want to leave? I want to make sure I covered everything today. What advice would you give to the listeners on like how big community? I think you've already said it about how big community is to you and how it plays such a huge role to the listeners, like why it's important to be plugged into community.
Yeah, I think, by nature, I think we're just very tribal people. And so I think having that tribe of good people and being somewhere where everybody's empathetic. And I think that's the biggest word for me is empathy, is put yourself in other people's shoes. What could that person be experiencing? What does that person need, right? What could they be going through in their life before I rush to judgment? How can I help them? And just to not be about yourself, but think about others and from their perspective. And you do that within a community of people. And if we all start doing that, we're all caring for each other. And it's not about, self-motivations. It's living that selfless life. And I think you live a lot richer life, and things naturally come to you when you live that selfless life.
Ooh, that was good. A lot richer life when you live a selfless life. That's t-shirt worthy. A lot richer life when you live a selfless life. And how does faith play a role? Like in, like I said, I couldn't do what you do. It takes a special heart, and that is, God called you to that for a reason, right? Like, we all have different gifts, and you have many gifts. And how has that played a role? It kind of reminds me too, like when I hear you talking about like going in of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, like when they went through the fire and they came out untouched. Like, I just thought about that. So
yeah, it's I think it's a tricky one, honestly. Because you think like, oh, you're doing God's work, serving people. What a lot of people don't see, for people that do, especially in public safety, is, yeah, you're called to do this, but it comes with a cost. Not just physical, but the mental cost that it takes. And again, that empathy piece gets missed for a lot of these guys, that people are like, oh, why are they living a life like this, or living a life of sin? And are they living a life of sin, or is this how they're coping for the responsibility that's been placed on them? Because it's so heavy, and it's cumulative stress, and that they carry with them, that I think that people don't always, look at that aspect of, you're looking at how they're living life, or is that just how they're coping? And I think that's an interesting one, that it's very much deeper religious talk about, these people are built to do this, and they're carrying out the work of the Lord. But then where's the avenue to take care of them for doing that work? Where's the, how do we help them recover, and, from seeing that and enduring that? And I think that's a huge missing piece in society, for those people.
Yeah, and they forget not them, but excuse me, people forget the grace, like you said, like, because they're coping.
Grace is a huge, that right there is, I think that's the big word, is grace. We forget that all the time. In my experience, I see is just always missed.
Grace, we need it. Mercy, we need it. Like, we're nothing without God's grace and mercy. But to the listeners, like, you never know what people are going through and why they're coping the way that they're coping. So extend some grace. So I want to make sure I covered everything. Did you have anything else you would like to share with the listeners today?
I think covered a lot of it. So,
a lot of great things. Like, I'm going to go back and take notes. Like, I told you earlier, I was like, I listen to them and I take notes because it's interesting and very inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And thank you for your service.
We appreciate that.
Thank you for your commitment to the community and giving back. And like, you are a light, you're shining bright. So where can the listeners find you?
So you can find all of our stuff, Kelly Inspection Services. We're on Facebook, Kelly Inspections, on Instagram. I think we got a TikTok out there, kellyinspectionservices.com. You can kind of find all of our stuff. So we have a bunch of new fun content coming out. Got educational content, fun stuff. We got a lot of stuff for our realtors coming through. So we really we got some fun stuff in the works right now. So,
yay! Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. It's an honor. Like, thank you for being here. I know you're busy and you're here today, so that means a lot.
We wouldn't miss it.
Thank you. And thank you so much for tuning in to Shine Abound today. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.